Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 4th, 2023. I recognize that the events this coming Shabbos, the coronation in London of King Charles, that these events are deeply momentous to millions of people in Great Britain and around the world, including many, many Jews. I also recognize the feelings of many here in Canada, and even more so here in Quebec, that their feelings may be more complicated about this subject, as are my own feelings as an American. But I am happy for those who are happy, and I add my blessings to the new king for inspired and uplifting leadership going forward. There's an interesting aspect to the events this Shabbos that I want to share with you, and that is the extensive and intensive participation of Britain's chief rabbi, Rabbi Ephriam Mirvis. In a recent interview with the Jerusalem Post, Rabbi Mirvis said, in the British mindset, the coronation is the greatest event that has happened in 71 years. Nothing is going to get in the way of this. Every tiny detail. And we welcome the fact that the inclusion of other faiths in this event is a feature of the coronation. It was not a feature in the previous one, just the church. After all, the essence of the coronation is a religious service in Westminster Abbey. In fact, going back in British history, some of the coronations going back centuries have actually been quite disastrous for Jews. But Baruch Hashem, we're at a place now where there is this desire positively to incorporate Jews and other religious groups in a very, very positive way. So Rabbi Mirvis discussed there are basically two separate issues that relate to Jewish law about his participation, and I think they're very interesting. I want to share them with you. The first has to do with entering a church. That's where the coronation takes place. And the second has to do with, since it's on Shabbos, the use of microphones or other electronic devices on Shabbos. So, concerning entering a church, the traditional view, according to Jewish law, is that for at least a large part of Christianity, the concept of the Trinity is at odds with strict monotheism. And therefore, and that's a complicated discussion, we'll leave that for another time, but therefore the practical ruling is that a Jewish person should not go into a church. So Rabbi Mirvis explained that the chief rabbi has a very clear, well-established code of contact of how to respond when there is an invitation from the monarch to appear. And he explained as follows. It depends how the invitation is worded. If the invitation is worded, His Majesty commands, so then, according to Jewish law, this creates an exception to the normal rule, and even things which would otherwise be prohibited according to Jewish law become permissible because of this concept called mipnei eva. We don't want to have negative relations with someone in such a position of power. It's very interesting. When Princess Diana died, her funeral was also in a church. The chief rabbi at that time was Rabbi Sachs, of course. And Rabbi Sachs was extended, it was on Shabbos. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. It was not on Shabbos, but it was in a church. Rabbi Sachs was extended an invitation to attend the funeral in the church. However, it was worded as an invitation, not a command, and therefore he did not enter into the church. What he did was he stood outside in a prominent designated spot so that the family, as they were leaving, would see that he was there, and he had explained this to them. He had a good relationship with the royal family, and so it was noticeable to the family as he left, and they understood why he had done that. But there were other times when he received invitations in the nature of a command, with the wording of a command, that he did attend. And Rabbi Mirvis points out that it's not a decision made by any one individual. There's a bet din. There's a rabbinical court that convenes to discuss each event individually, to weigh the issues, and to decide what the chief rabbi should do. Rabbi Mirvis said, and this is really quite remarkable, and I think a lot of Jews in Great Britain agree with his sentiment. In King Charles, we have a genuine friend of the Jewish people, and somebody who goes out of his way to champion the members of other faiths to practice the tenets of their faith with pride. Now, interestingly, a similar situation in the United States in 2009 was received very, very differently. January 2009 was the inauguration of President Obama, and as part of the inauguration, there was a prayer service the next morning at the National Cathedral. It's called the National Prayer Service. The National Prayer Service on the morning after the inauguration is a custom that dates back to the inauguration of George Washington, and it concludes the activities surrounding the inauguration itself. And at this prayer service, Rabbi Lichtenstein, together with religious leaders of other faiths, Rabbi Lichtenstein was invited to come and to deliver a prayer. Rabbi Lichtenstein, Rabbi Haskell Lichtenstein, a remarkable, amazing rabbi. He is now the Rabbi Emeritus of the Congregation Kehilas Yeshurun, KJ. Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz is now the senior rabbi, and Rabbi Lichtenstein is Rabbi Emeritus, but at that time, Rabbi Lichtenstein was the senior rabbi. And so he participated, he responded to the invitation, and he participated. And then he was criticized. He was criticized by many, including the RCA, Rabbinical Council of America. The RCA issued a statement at that time, and they said, the long-standing policy of the Rabbinical Council of America, in accordance with Jewish law, is that participation in a prayer service held in the sanctuary of a church is prohibited. And any member of the RCA, Rabbi Lichtenstein is a member of the RCA, a proud member of the RCA, but he was not representing the RCA, and any member of the RCA who attends such a service does so in contravention of this policy and should not be perceived as representing the organization in any capacity. Okay, there were a lot of people that were critical of the RCA's criticism, and Rabbi Lichtenstein himself wrote an article to the members of the RCA defending his attendance and participation in this prayer service. First, he said that he was invited specifically because he was an Orthodox rabbi, and if he would have failed to attend, it would have been an insult from the Orthodox community, he felt. He also explained it was not an interfaith dialogue, which was what the original prohibition was, but it was an invitation from the President of the United States. And in Rabbi Lichtenstein's words, the President of the United States, whoever it is a person, well, he said a man, I should say a person, of incredible importance to the fate of our holy community in the land of Israel and here. Rabbi Lichtenstein quoted the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, that says that a Karav L'Malchus, a person who is trying to develop a relationship with high government officials to be able to intercede on behalf of the Jewish community when it will be necessary, a Karav L'Malchus, such a person, is allowed to set aside certain prohibitions. And Rabbi Lichtenstein is saying, like entering a church that would normally be prohibited for a private individual, but it's set aside in order to be able to develop this relationship. And please note that what the halacha is saying is not at a time of crisis. If it's time of crisis, obviously you're allowed to do whatever you need to do. But not at a time of crisis. You're allowed to set aside what would otherwise be prohibited to develop this relationship over time, to maintain these ties. It could be over decades, so that at the moment that there is a crisis, you will be in a position to be able to have some influence. If you try to have influence at that moment with no prior relationship, you're not going to get very far. Rabbi Lookstein also pointed out the practice of the chief rabbis in Great Britain to attend whenever they are summoned by the monarch. And the chief rabbis of Israel have appeared in churches. Rabbi Shar Yashav Cohen, who was the chief rabbi in Haifa, a great Torah scholar, attended the funeral of the late Pope John Paul II, and the chief rabbis have attended other services, again, when they felt it was in this category. So there was a lot of controversy in 2009 over this. All right, I have not seen any controversy concerning Rabbi Mirvis's participation. Okay. The second issue relates to the laws of Shabbos, because this is going to take place on Saturday, on Shabbos. So Rabbi Mirvis said, the royal family genuinely and sincerely want us to practice our faith. And they wanted to make sure that the chief rabbi would be able to be there. The chief rabbi and his wife is Valerie, that they'd be able to be there. It's not close to where they live. So King Charles invited Rabbi and Mrs. Mirvis to spend Shabbos in a palace, in a royal palace, St. James Palace, and they're providing a kosher caterer, and they're lighting Shabbos candles, and every need that they have to be able to spend Shabbos close to where this is going to take place so that they can walk there. But the walking there is also a very interesting thing, because there's an interesting historical parallel about the chief rabbi walking to the coronation. In 1902, it's over 100 years ago, the coronation of King Edward VII was put off because he was sick. So the actual date of the coronation fell on Shabbos. The chief rabbi at that time, 1902, was Rabbi Herman Adler, and he walked to the coronation. It was Shabbos, but he participated, again, like the chief rabbis participate. But what is fascinating, Rabbi Mirvis said that Buckingham Palace called him and said to him, we want you to walk to the coronation using the same route that Rabbi Adler used to walk to the coronation in 1902. Okay, it's very important that it should be done exactly every detail how it's done. It's important to the British monarchy. Now, so this is another amazing thing. At the end of the coronation service, so there's going to be a procession outside, leading out of the abbey, the church, and the king and the queen will be leading this procession out, and they're going to walk out and they're going to stand facing 8 faith leaders, representing 8 different faiths. Rabbi Mirvis is the one representing the Jewish faith with 7 other religious leaders. So he explained, he said, the religious leaders, we're going to stand in a line, and the king is going to come in his full regalia and in his historic 16th century crown, which is only worn at coronations, and he will stand in front of us. We will give him a blessing in unison, an official blessing message, which we will all recite together. And he said the words we're saying are pretty simple. Obviously, it's got to be a blessing that all 8 of the religious leaders are comfortable with. It's going to be simple, but very powerful. So that's another part of the ceremony that Rabbi Mirvis will be front and center. And Rabbi Mirvis and his wife are offering gifts to the king and the queen. Rabbi Mirvis described them as Shabbos gifts. They're giving them 2 gifts. The first gift, Valerie, that's his wife, is baking biscuits for the king and queen, which are the biscuits we know that they like and enjoy. I think he means cookies, if I understand that correctly. All right, so that's a nice Shabbos gift to bake someone some fresh cookies. And the second gift is a certificate that a grove of trees will be planted in Israel in the United Synagogue Forest in honor of the coronation. Of course, King Charles is a very passionate environmentalist, so the idea that trees are being planted in his honor is something that will be meaningful. Finally, Rabbi Mirvis shared the menu that he will be eating for his Shabbos meal, which he has already chosen and arranged. It is a dish called Coronation chicken. Now, you may have read about this. So this is a dish. I have to confess, it's a little bit hard for me to understand this because what it basically is chicken salad with a little bit of curry powder in it. It's a little bit hard for me to grasp it, but this dish was invented for the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, and it is called Coronation chicken. So Rabbi Mirvis and his wife will be enjoying Coronation chicken this Shabbos in honor of the King and the Queen. I will say this. If Kosher Quality makes Coronation chicken, we will try to get some for Kiddush this Shabbos at ADATH, but I'm not making any promises. Long live the King. My friends, thank you very much. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you in person very soon.